No.
Okay,
Today we're meeting Andrew Hogan. He's a business mystic I met a few days ago in Bali. And you know, this is the kind of thing that happens here in Bali. You meet interesting people, and Andrew is definitely one of the most interesting people I've met in a long time. So if you're interested, if you're intrigued by spirituality, personal growth, and the mysteries of the universe, this conversation is definitely worth watching.
So my name is Andrew Hogan. I run a company called Insatori, and we're raising the consciousness of humanity, working with people all over the globe. We particularly like to work with people that are leaders or have a lot of resources that they want to allocate towards the betterment of humanity. So I get invited to work on these incredible projects that are making a huge difference in the world.
Actually, I was trying to look you up on YouTube. It's not so easy.
I don't really want to be famous. I don't really want to be known. People know me, but it's word of mouth mostly. But there is some out there.
So maybe you can give some background to people who are watching. Or
What do you think would be helpful?
I feel like that what you were talking to me about when you were young. How did you kind of came to this place of awareness?
Yeah, so when I was a young kid, I was full of love and full of happiness and full of joy. And I lived in a difficult environment, both the family and where I lived, was a bit of a roughneck area, But I always had this ability, sixth sense ability to what we would call now channeling. I knew things, and how could, when a young kid, 6 years old, 8 years old, 12 years old, how could this young kid know these things? So clairsentient. I could astral travel, I could remote view. I didn't know the terms of that, but I was doing all this crazy stuff. I could.
How did you know about that when you were a child? I mean, no one knows these terms.
I don't know those terms.
What were you feeling? What was the experience?
Well, the experience would be as I would lie down on the couch, no one was around, and I would lie down on the couch and I would leave my body and I would go places.
Oh.
At first, just around the house, and then the neighborhood, and then I'm like, all right, let's keep going, and and then around different places around where I grew up, the United States, and then it got to the globe, and then I'm like, there seem to be other places. So I started leaving the Earth plane and going exploring, and I met all sorts of exciting, interesting, non-earthly beings and essences, which was kind of cool. And so I used to do that a lot. I didn't tell anybody because I told a few people some things and it seemed to cause a reaction in them that was not wanted, and I would get punished. So I try not to talk about it.
I mean, I guess it's also speak to if someone is watching it for the first time and never heard about these terms, he may think that you're a bit wacko.
Yeah, because the human mind cannot understand these higher frequency, higher dimensions, higher spirituality. However, I've never met a human being. I've worked with lots, thousands and thousands and thousands all over the planet in all sorts of different situations, including people in jail and psychiatrics and gangsters and mafia and politicians, you name it. Everybody knows there's something more going on. They have different ways of saying it, different experience of it, but they all know. And so when you actually start sharing this, you have to share it in a way that they can see and understand. We all know there's more to life than what meets our eye. Yeah.
And how do you bring people to see that? Because again, to the layman, the people who live their lives, when you say that you are projecting yourself to other places, it seems completely.
Well, I don't work with lay people anymore, but so I did that a long time. It's a lot of work to waking them up. They're in a deep, deep sleep generally, and you're trying to waken them up, and it's. So I work with people that are already awake now, and we awaken more and more and more. So they already know.
They don't question that.
Well, they can question a little bit, but they already know. They've had an awakening. Like, so I'll give you an example. One of my clients, great guy, blah, blah, blah. Don't want to give too much information. But he knew that there was more to life. He made lots of money, hundreds of millions of dollars, whatever, private jets, all this stuff. He knew there was more to life. And he got this notion that he should go to an ayahuasca ceremony, so he did an ayahuasca and he had this awakening, awakening. And he's like, okay, I've got some information here. I need a new plan. I need to know what my future, I want to create something. I want to create a new vision is what he said. Mm-hmm. And then somehow, we'll call it the details, he found one of my companies is called Visioneers. So he found the Visioneer. He's like, hey man, can you help me? I want a new vision for life based on this new understanding. I'm like, oh yeah, I'd love to work with you. So we would call it get downloaded or getting some new information from a higher field of existence or dimension. An awakening. This is what an awakening is. Whoa, there's more. I want to create something more in attunement and alignment now with that versus what I was doing, which was, taking care of my family, making money, running a great business.
So brings me to this place. What are you doing today? Like how you're helping people just to get some impression.
Yeah. So raising the consciousness of humanity is what I'm up to with all of us who are out there doing that. There's a lot of us. So we're raising the frequency, consciousness of humanity for the betterment of all. This is what I do. Working with highly resourced, highly successful, but also influential people. So get their consciousness raised, and then they have all these resources, and then they use those resources in a higher consciousness way, which is really cool.
The classical way of getting to spirituality is going to some guru and studying in an ashram, and now there is another.
That's the old paradigm. It's not most of the authentic. I'm not saying the gurus in the past weren't authentic, but the ones that have awoken to this time and place now know that that paradigm is done. So each and every person has their own connection with the universal higher frequency field, whatever you want to call it. And they don't actually need a guru. Now it's helpful to have someone point you in the right direction or maybe answer some of your questions. Someone's been down the path a little further than you, let's say. So that's really helpful. I mean, I have that. It's really helpful. Because you can get confused or, should I go left or right here? And da-da-da. They don't tell you to go left or right if they're good. They say, well, let's get in touch with your own inner knowingness, guides, spirits, whatever, and let's ask them what you should do. And then that's what's happening.
And you call it guides, but I call it heart.
Yeah.
There is a distinction? Because heart feels more personal. It feels like it's coming from me, from beyond myself, beyond the self. Like the heart to me is a connection to beyond
the heart
myself.
is part of your body, which is great. It's a tool. The heart is part of the body, just like the mind. And you're not your heart. You're not your body. You're not your mind. So there's actually a frequency, a dimension of yourself that's beyond all physicality. Now the heart is a good place to check with something, and people check with their mind, they check with their heart, they check with their emotions, they check with all these different things. The heart is a great place. We now know, just in the physical reality, that the heart has its own intelligence. That we also know that the gut, the stomach biome, has its own intelligence. In fact, it might be guiding the heart. It's still, but there's something beyond all that. So if you had no heart, which would be impossible, but if you had no heart, you could still be in touch with this. Now, I'm not saying don't use your heart. Heart-centered is good, but there's something even more delicious, more special, more unique that's beyond all physicality.
So you're saying that there's a certain frequency of using that word or using that terminology because it's semantics in many levels. No, just to say I'm feeling from my heart, or this is, for me it was always a semantics, but I'm feeling from you that there's another frequency to use.
You don't speak horse, probably, but horses, just use an example, I work with horses, communicate in frequency, but they also use other things. They use their vocal cords and their ears and their body and all sorts of things. Their feet, they'll kick you, they'll bite you, and But here's the truth: you can actually have a great conversation with a horse without language. So language, I'm not saying it's unimportant and it doesn't have certain resonance or certain meanings. But what I teach people is to listen below, beneath, or above, whichever way you want to go. The words are not the most important piece. The most important thing is the frequency. The frequency of what's being where the person's, their frequency is, and then what they're communicating, what frequency they're communicating at. And yes, you tend to use higher frequency words when you're coming from a higher frequency place. You tend to use lower frequency words when you're coming from a lower frequency place. So the CEO called me up once. He goes, I heard you have this special magic. Yes, okay. He goes, I have this business partner and we grew this company together. We were best friends and it was really great. And then, he's gone off on other things and I need to buy him out, get him out of the company. He wants out, blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah. The lawyers are telling me I should do this and I should do that. And my wife's telling me this and his wife and his lawyers are telling me this and we're just fighting and we're fighting and we're fighting. I said, oh, okay, this is great. So I took him up to a higher frequency, and I can tell you, higher frequency. And in this higher frequency, when it's there, I say, what is the answer that you're looking for? I didn't tell him what to do. What do you really want to do from this higher place? And he's like, oh, well, was one of my best friends. We created this company together. I don't really want to, do what the lawyers are saying. I really want to give him a gift that represents his contribution and tell him how much I love him and thank him. And, it is time to separate and it's okay, and wish him really well. I said, great. Do that and just tell the lawyers that they work for you and this is what you want done. And I said, here's the magic of that. You're going to sleep really well. You're going to wake up 1 month from now, 1 year from now, 10 years from now, and be really happy with yourself that you did that. Whether he accepts it or not, has nothing to do with you, but you will know you have done the right thing. You will know it was a higher frequency, a higher heart. You can go with the heart versus like what I could get away with legally, And he did it, resolved the whole thing really quickly. The guy accepted it. This was a problem for a number of years, disappeared very quickly. Weeks.
It's wonderful when we connect to that.
So you're using these higher spiritual principles and what I call resonance frequency perceptions in a practical way.
I call it ego. I call it let go of that ego, which is something that is beyond the self. Like you overextend, just like I need to defend this honor or this. It's not like that. How do you?
Well, ego's made up. It doesn't even exist, but we make up that it exists, and then it gets control over us.
The way to explain it practically is I say, oh, look at this ego sense of self that you created, this illusion that you need to defend your honor, and defending your honor means that you're this.
Well, everybody's ego is different, right? And personality and ego, and people make up they don't know. They get gifted it by society and all this stuff. But some people their egos are really insecure, and I don't want anything. I don't ask for anything. I just try to hide. That's ego too. It just doesn't look like it. And some people have really what we call big egos. I want everything my way, when I want it, how I want it. What the heck's wrong with the world? Why aren't you guys all doing what I want? Blah, blah, blah. Maybe this would we call someone that would be like an authoritarian, I know the answers. This is how it goes. Heck with all of you guys. But if you can raise one's frequency, the ego starts to dissolve because it's actually not real. So we create these things with our mind. We have all these different tools, but one of them is our mind. We create these things and then become called thought forms. Didn't exist before. You create something. Maybe someone gave it to you, saw it on TV, whatever. And now it becomes a thing. And then you put more energy and more frequency and more density around it. It becomes a real thing. But it's not real.
What I wanted to also, it comes to my heart, that to ask you about is, talked about a little bit intuition, but there's a difference between intuition to empathy, or to be an empath.
Oh yeah. Right.
Sometimes I feel like you had this empath qualities to you. I don't know if that's the right word, since you were a child. But to me, it's just kind of developed that relaxing the mind and feeling and trusting that.
Yeah.
Recently.
So how I explain that, I've been an empath well, but not the way that a lot of people see it, but you open your field so you can actually feel or absorb other frequencies, right? So you walk into a room and you start feeling the feelings of other people, right? This is empath. So empathy is something different where you can, if someone's sad and you feel empathetic towards them, it's similar, but it's on a small scale. But when you start to feel, like we're in this really beautiful place, right? And then there's beautiful rice fields. Everything is frequency and has energy. When you're in, you can feel the energy. You can feel the energy. It's not just the normal senses that people talk about, but you have a felt sense of it, and most people in their body. Mm-hmm.
Most people immediately dismiss it because that doesn't make sense. How do you?
Because that's the mind. The mind is not, it's a very valuable thing. It's really brilliant, but it's not good at that. Can't understand it, can't make sense of it.
I guess, well, we have this, some people have this quality to feel people more than others.
Mm-hmm. Everybody has the quality, and you can open that field more and more and more. And some people come with it way open. Some people are too open, I would say, and so they can't even be around anything that, and they don't know how to close it, or sometimes we call it put a protective, energetic barrier, so you're not like. So I've gone into jails and worked with people, and there's a lot of anger and resentment and frustration. Not all, but a lot of that. And if you're super empathetic, you're walking by those jail cells and you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa,
Yes.
So I think in my field, it's good to have this empath, but knowing how to modulate, how much am I going to let in? I want to know what's going on here. So feeling it's good, but I don't want it to overwhelm me, because then now I'm lost in someone else's energy. One reason why we live in Bali, I love living in Bali, is some of the friendliest people in the world live here. We have some really interesting people. So I don't have to protect myself or close myself or close the aperture as much as I would, let's say, when I was living in Mexico, for instance. Not that I don't love Mexico, but, or in the United States, because you get these.
For me, this feeling of empathy is if I feel something that doesn't belong to me, if I feel all of a sudden fear, and there's no reason for me to be afraid. Is that how you?
Well, it's really helpful to know where it's coming from. So is it yours? Is it theirs or someone else's? So if you want to be really helpful, you learn to distinguish that, because then you can be helpful. So if you're working with someone and you're feeling their fear and it's not yours, you could say to them, this is interesting. You might say it like that. This is interesting. This seems really scary for you. So you're naming it.
Oh.
And if they're aware, they're like, yeah, it's really scary. Okay, that's really interesting.
So you don't point to their fear, you just speak to from an empathetic.
If someone's really afraid, he's like, hey, why are you being afraid over there? You might shock them. They might run out of the room.
Okay.
But sometimes you can use energy. So I was in a situation where Balinese dogs are very interesting. But anyway, there was this dog, I think it was a rabid dog, but it was attacking all these dogs, and there was blood and growling. And so I used my energy. I also grabbed a pillow and a placemat. I was at a restaurant, and I ran up to this dog and I went, whoa! I was actually pushing energy at him. And, whoa! I'm like, yes. Chased him away 3 times. And then the 3rd time, I'm like, okay, I'm really going to give it to him. Frequency. I gave him this frequency, like, don't come back. So you can use frequency, you can or other people's energy, you can feel it. It's just learning. I think empaths that don't learn how to do that, they end up gaining a lot of weight. And the reason why they're gaining weight is to protect themselves. There's better ways to protect yourself than gaining a lot of weight. That's not so healthy,
I heard once that you imagine a pink bubble around you, or
I do that sometimes. Yeah. I use an egg in 3 different colors, but in the Matrix, and the bullets are flying. If you learn to see things and feel things, you can not have the bullets hit you.
One of the greatest pleasure to sit in front of you is this feeling that you are very brave to even to speak to that, because a lot of times people always want to speak more to the rational mind, and you're just allowing yourself to express that truth, or I don't like the word truth. But
yeah, it took me a long time because I got punished so much for saying it, you know? And then I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna stand my truth and stand my ground and do it with heart center, but still say it. Be unafraid to say it.
yes.
And that's why people hire me, because I actually will tell them what most people will not tell them. Well, someone asked me, this is just before the election in the United States, and they said, so if we could get Donald Trump and Putin to come here, would you help them have a conversation, facilitate the conversation? I said, absolutely, that'd be fun. That's my courage, like, sure. And I said, but I don't think, one, that you're gonna get either or both of them here, and two, if they come here, they have to be open, there's no point in doing it. But if you can check off those two boxes, I'll do it. I'm unafraid, I don't care.
It's very difficult to even imagine that, because very strong, big egos at play. The biggest egos in the world.
Yeah, I would work with the Palestinians and the Israelis. I would work with anybody. I don't mind. I've worked with all sorts of people, including mafia and cartels and stuff. And, you know, I've worked with killers, blah, blah, blah. But if you go into your heart, I'll use heart center, and your higher frequency, all there is love. It's just love. That's what's there. So you're loving the person, no matter who they are, what they've done or haven't done. You can love them completely and totally unconditionally, and they will feel that. Now, how much they feel, you know, and then you can start having conversations with them if they're interested. So I had this one guy who killed a lot of people, and I said, well, so I'm a really bad person. I said, oh. And I'm just checking, and I'm like, you're not. I understand that you think you are. I get this has happened, but you're not. You're actually a really wonderful soul who has found yourself in a series of very difficult situations, and that was your solution. Okay, not so good, right? We agree. Yes. So, but underneath that, I'm not saying what you've done is right, but underneath that is this really beautiful human being, and I see you, and I'd like to talk to that guy and bring more of him out, and let more of him guide you versus the other guy. Would you be interested in that conversation? And he's like, yes, let's do that. So, and he got brighter and lighter and happier, you know? You know, this a knowingness, to let go of knowing, that's the mind. You know, to step into the world of unknowingness is one of the most powerful things you can do, because most of everything is completely and totally unknown. And if you're comfortable with the unknown, then all sorts of unlimited possibilities start revealing themselves in this unknowingness. You actually open, just use the metaphor of your eyes, you open your eyes to see things that you never saw before, because they were closed before, because you already knew the answer, or how it was, or how it is, or how it is.
So maybe speak to me a little bit more about this art of not knowing. What comes to your heart when these words are there?
Oh, for me, it's bliss, because it was so weighty to always trying to know and having the answer, and the ego involved. Do I know? Do I not know? I'm going into this situation. What do I know? What do I not know? And then when you release all that and relax all that, for me, you can walk into any situation like, I have no idea. With wonder, curiosity, love, compassion, kindness, like, wow, I wonder what this is about.
Do you feel this is, why do you feel that this is something that you have more? Is it because
Because I was an overthinker for so long, and all the pain and suffering that overthink. I would write emails to these really important people, whatever I was working with, and I would read it 30 times or something, try and change one word, or, you know, we didn't have Grammarly back then, but, you know, get out this thesaurus and the spell check and I forget the red book with the proper grammar, and checking and rechecking it before I send it. Then I'd send it, and then I'd read it another 30 times.
Yes.
This is,
We're all guilty of that.
yes, this is crazy. Now I write it. I'm dyslexic. I don't care. I write it, grammarly check it, whatever. I'm like, okay, good. Off it goes. Don't even think about it. Don't reread it. It has a certain frequency and energy. I send it with that frequency and energy, and it goes off into the world, and then whatever comes back, comes back. Sometimes nothing, sometimes wonderful things.
Something that also came up is relationships, frequency and energy. My theory is that like we resonate on a certain frequency, otherwise we will never meet. Or
Yeah, you're attracting that same resonance frequency, and you're also the learning lessons that come with those.
yes, but then it lasts for a while, and then it somehow shifts.
Yeah.
Maybe you can point to. I mean, I noticed that as a pattern. Like it doesn't like sometimes it lasts a lifetime.
Yeah.
Sometimes it lasts for a while.
Yeah. One spiritual guide said it, the pattern is about 7 years. I don't know if that's true. But for me, if you're open and you stay open and curious, you go through this part in the relationship where you're, learning from each other and teaching each other. And it's really interesting. It can be really fun. And there's all sorts of things, chemistry and all this stuff. But at some point that exhausts itself, to say. So basically, get to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think there's an opportunity to choose. Like, okay, complete. Thank you. Or it's like, okay, now let's create a relationship on nothing. What would that look like? So I think that's a higher level relationship where there's no reason, nothing, and it's all complete creation and choice.
What would that be? How
Yeah.
would that be?
I have a few dogs in Bali where I live, and our relationship's based on that. They already have a house, they already have people, they get fed regularly, and they just come and stay at my house sometimes. They don't need me, I don't need them. It's just like, hey man, how are you doing? One's name's Lucky.
No expectations.
No expectations. Lays on my porch, whatever, and this other black dog, I don't even know his name, comes in and, hey man, what are you doing? I'm like, working, reading, I don't know, doing something. What are you doing? I don't know, just visiting. They come, my gate's open, they can stay for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, doesn't matter, or 5 minutes. I put a little water bowl, they don't need water, but I put a little water bowl out for them. Once in a while I give them a treat, just because it's fun, but sometimes one of them paws like, hey, I want a treat. I'm like, yeah, not to now. They still come back. It's really more like that, like there's no reason, we don't have any reason.
In Hebrew, we call it free love.
Yeah, free love.
Free love.
Or it's a higher order, I think. There's nothing wrong with needing support and wanting support and having people support each other. Those are great relationships too, but you can get to this place where there's nothing. And when you reach that place, it's like, whoa, am I done? Or is there something more? Most people think they're done at that place, which you can't do. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful place with all this art. Yeah. And it's owned by a Balinese family. They live in these compounds, so they all live towards the street. And then this is the river. There's actually 2 rivers here, and the rice fields. And according to Balinese law and tradition, it's actually cultural tradition, you can't build more than, you have to leave 30% for nature. One of their pillars is honoring nature. So they've got lots of nature. We could go that way. But this is such a spectacular view. It's one of the best in Ubud, I think, of the rice views. There's only 6 villas here and the restaurant. But you have this. Oh my gosh. How fortunate are we? And there's 2 rivers coursing down there. They come together. And if you know anything about Bali, it's the sacred place of water. So being around water is important. Absolutely gorgeous. So this is where I come to work. Not too bad. Thank you.